All right, so we're back, and today we're going to dive into a case that I think you're going to find pretty interesting. It's the murder of Jamie Faith.
Okay.
He was an American Airlines manager, and this happened right on his doorstep in Oak Cliff, which is in Dallas.
Oh, wow.
Our main source today is going to be an article from Investor,
Okay.
and it's titled Tragic Murder of Jamie Faith, a Shocking Crime in Oak Cliff, Dallas. So, I mean, when you hear that title, you're probably thinking, okay, another true crime case. But trust me, this one is. It's got some twists and turns to it.
Yeah.
Brazen daylight shooting, a mysterious getaway truck that's possibly tied to the Texas Rangers. Like what?
Oh, well, okay.
So we're going to try and unpack all of that today and see if maybe you listening can help us figure out what really happened to Jamie Faith and why.
I'm intrigued already. It sounds like a real head scratcher. One of those
Yeah.
cases that just grabs you from the get-go. I mean, just the setting alone. You've got a seemingly ordinary Friday morning at 7:30 a.m. Jamie and his wife, Jennifer, are walking their dog, Maggie, and it happens in their quiet neighborhood. There's just no indication, nothing to suggest that this horrible violence is about to erupt.
It's just crazy. The way the article describes it, it's like a scene out of a movie,
Yep.
This gunman appears out of nowhere and just unloads on Jamie 7 times.
7 times.
Yeah, 3 to the head, 3 to the chest, and 1 to the groin. I mean, that is just not your typical robbery.
No,
Right.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
That level of violence, it's just so personal. It really makes you think, was it rage? Was it like a need to just absolutely make sure Jamie was dead?
Right.
And then it gets even more perplexing when you consider the next detail.
Hmm.
The gunman binds Jennifer with duct tape, right? Like he's
Yeah.
trying to prevent her from getting help.
Right.
But then all he takes are her rings,
Yeah.
which are only valued at like maybe a couple $1,000s.
Yeah, it's so strange. You have this incredibly violent, seemingly targeted act, but then this theft that feels almost like an afterthought.
Exactly. It doesn't add up. It's like if it was a professional hit, wouldn't they be more, focused,
Mm-hmm.
efficient?
Right.
And wouldn't they take something more valuable, like to make it actually look like a robbery?
Mm-hmm.
The rings almost make it seem too staged, too obvious.
Yeah, it's almost like, why even bother with the rings?
Right, exactly.
So if it wasn't a professional hit, what about someone who knew Jamie? Like a disgruntled employee or something.
That's a good point. I mean, the article does mention that the shooting happened during the COVID pandemic when the airline industry was really struggling. Lots of layoffs, pay cuts, tensions were high.
Yeah, a lot of people were blaming their managers.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So it's possible that someone held a grudge against Jamie. And if you wanted revenge, what better way to do it than to strike when he's most vulnerable, right?
Out in the open, in his own neighborhood where he probably felt safe.
Exactly. And if this person knew Jamie's routine, they would know exactly when and where to find him.
It's scary to think about. And, the article actually paints this picture of Jamie as really likable guy.
Yeah.
Fun-loving, kind-hearted. He and Jennifer had actually just moved to Dallas from Arizona. Like they were starting a fresh start and they had their daughter, Amber. It's just hard to imagine anyone wanting to hurt him.
It is, isn't it? Which is why it's so important to kind of dig deeper. Like, was there something beneath the surface that we're missing?
Right.
Some hidden conflict, a past grudge. The article doesn't really go into much detail about Jamie's life before Dallas, so that could be, a potential area to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's the getaway vehicle. This is where things get really interesting, okay?
Okay.
Witnesses describe it as a black Nissan Titan pickup truck with a TE emblem. I mean, how often do you see a truck like that?
Not very often, especially like tied to a crime like this.
Right. It's just so specific.
Yeah.
And the article suggests that it might be connected to the Texas Rangers.
Whoa, the Texas Rangers.
Yeah. So that's a very specific detail.
That's almost too specific to ignore. You know?
Right. It's like a giant neon sign pointing in a certain direction. But here's the thing.
What?
The article also says that the truck's license plate, it wasn't visible in any of the security footage.
Oh, so they don't have a plate number.
No. And that's a huge blow to the investigation.
Of course. It's like having this single puzzle piece, but you have no idea where it fits in the bigger picture.
Exactly. And it just raises so many questions. Was the truck stolen? Was someone trying to send a message by using a truck like that? Or is it just a red herring to lead investigators down the wrong path?
It's a real mystery.
Hmm.
And then there's Jennifer, right? She witnessed this whole thing.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
What details might she have noticed that could help investigators?
Right.
Her account of what happened, it could be crucial in piecing together what happened. Maybe she saw something that we're not even thinking about.
Absolutely. I mean, did she get a look at the gunman? Could she describe him?
Exactly. Any details about his appearance, his demeanor, anything could help identify him, or at least narrow down the possibilities.
It's just crazy. So we have this web of clues and theories, the brutality of the attack,
Right.
the seemingly staged robbery, the mystery truck with this Texas Rangers connection. It's just a lot.
It's a puzzle, for sure. But sometimes the most baffling cases, those are the ones that hold the most fascinating stories. So hopefully as we dig deeper, we can start to connect the dots.
Let's hope so. It's just, I don't know, it's cases like this that really make you stop and think.
Yeah.
Here's Jamie living this seemingly normal life, and then boom, in a flash, it's all gone. I mean, what do you think was going through Jennifer's mind in those moments?
Oh, it's hard to even imagine, right?
It's
The
terrible.
terror and confusion she must have felt. Well, the article does mention she was bound with duct tape, but thankfully she wasn't physically harmed.
Right, right.
It does make you wonder, though, was that just to, buy the gunman time to escape?
hmm
Or was there something more to it?
Yeah. It's almost like the attacker wanted her to see what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Why else would you leave her unharmed but completely terrified?
Right.
And then to add to all of the heartbreak, you have their daughter, Amber.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the article doesn't really go into detail about her, but
Yeah.
you can only imagine the impact this whole thing has had on her life.
Yeah, it's awful. It's a stark reminder that these crimes, they're not just statistics or headlines,
Right.
There are real people, real families whose lives are shattered by these acts of violence.
The article does mention that the community, the Oak Cliff community, really rallied around Jennifer and Amber, though,
Oh, that's good.
providing meals, emotional support, all those things that you need when your world has been completely turned upside down. It's good to know, that in the face of this horrible darkness, there's still that sense of community, people looking out for each other.
It really speaks volumes about the kind of person Jamie was, too.
Yeah.
To have that kind of impact on his community,
Mm.
to inspire that level of support. He must have been someone truly special.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes me wonder, though, does that community support, or does it offer any clues? I mean, someone out there must have seen something, even if they don't realize that it's important. Like
Right.
maybe they noticed a suspicious vehicle in the days leading up to the shooting, or someone who just seemed out of place in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Often it's those seemingly insignificant details that can crack a case wide open.
Right.
And in a tight-knit community like Oak Cliff, where people know each other and they look out for one another, it's possible that someone's holding a piece of the puzzle without even knowing it.
So what can we, as people who are following this case, what can we do to help? The article doesn't mention any specific requests from law enforcement, but surely there are things that we can do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think staying informed is a good first step. Keep an eye out for any updates from the Dallas Police Department. Maybe they'll release new information or put out a call for specific tips from the public.
And what about all those online communities that are dedicated to true crime? Could those be helpful at all?
I mean, those forums, they can be a double-edged sword.
Huh.
They can be great for sharing information and generating theories, but it's also crucial to be discerning. Not everything you read online is credible.
So we got to be careful about what we believe and what we share, right?
Right, exactly.
But at the same time, maybe someone in one of those forums has a unique perspective or a connection that investigators haven't considered.
It's certainly possible. The key is to approach these communities with, a healthy dose of skepticisms, but also with an open mind. You never know where that next breakthrough might come from.
Okay, so let's recap what we know so far. We have a seemingly random act of violence, but with elements that suggest it was targeted, right? We have this potential connection to the Texas Rangers, but it's unclear how that fits into the whole puzzle.
Yeah.
And we have a community that's grappling with the loss of one of their own and desperately seeking answers.
It's a lot to take in. And I think for anyone following this case, the natural question is, where do we go from here?
Right.
What can we do to keep that momentum going, to keep the pressure on, and to ensure that Jamie's memory doesn't fade away?
We've talked about the importance of community involvement and staying informed, but what about digging deeper into those theories?
Right.
Like the professional hitman theory is intriguing, but what would be the motive?
Yeah.
Who would want Jamie dead and why?
And if it wasn't a hit, what about that disgruntled employee angle? Could someone have harbored a grudge against Jamie that ran deeper than we know?
Yeah.
I mean, our article mentions that he was an American Airlines manager, but it doesn't really delve into the specifics of his role or any potential conflicts he might have faced.
Maybe there's someone out there, a former colleague, a business associate, who knows something crucial but hasn't come forward yet.
Yeah.
Perhaps they're afraid, or maybe they just don't realize the significance of the information they hold.
It's possible.
It's a reminder that even the smallest detail can be important in a case like this. A seemingly insignificant interaction, an overheard conversation, anything could hold the key to unlocking this mystery.
Yeah. You never know.
And then there's the Texas Rangers connection. It's just so bizarre.
I know, right?
Was the truck like a deliberate distraction? A way to mislead investigators? Or is there a genuine link to the team? What if someone connected to the Rangers had a reason to want Jamie dead?
It's a wild theory, but we can't rule anything out at this point. It's important to remember that we're dealing with very limited information here.
Right.
The article only provides a snapshot of the investigation, and there's likely a lot more going on behind the scenes.
So what can we do to learn more? The article mentions that the case remains unsolved, which means the Dallas Police Department is still actively investigating. They must have a tip line, right?
They almost certainly do.
And even if they don't have any specific requests for information at the moment, any tips from the public, no matter how small they might seem, could be helpful.
Right.
Perhaps someone saw something unusual near Jamie's home around the time of the shooting, or maybe they know someone who fits the description of the suspect.
But worth trying.
Even if it feels insignificant, it's worth reaching out, right?
Yeah.
You never know what piece of information could be the missing link that investigators need. And think about Jennifer and Amber still waiting for answers, still seeking justice for Jamie.
Yeah.
If you have any information that could help, wouldn't you want to share it?
Absolutely. It's the least we can do, not just for Jamie and his family, but for the entire Oak Cliff community. This crime has left a scar on their neighborhood, and helping to solve it, I think, would be a step towards healing.
So as we're moving towards the end of our deep dive into this case, what are your final thoughts? What message would you leave our listeners with?
I think the biggest takeaway here is that this case, it's far from closed. There are still so many unanswered questions, so many loose ends to tie up. But it's not just about finding the answers, you know?
Right.
It's about keeping Jamie's memory alive. It's about ensuring that his story doesn't get lost in the endless cycle of news.
And it's about empowering each and every one of you listening to become a part of the solution.
Right.
You might have the key piece of information that unlocks this whole case.
Yeah.
Wow, you've given us a lot to think about.
Yeah.
It feels like every time we uncover a new detail in this case, it's like it just leads to more questions. It's like a true labyrinth of intrigue. But I have to believe there's a thread somewhere in all of this that leads to the truth.
There has to be.
Right.
And like we've been talking about, even the smallest detail, the most seemingly insignificant observation, that could be the thread.
Right, like a clue.
It just sparks everything.
It's like those, old mystery novels where you have a seemingly innocuous clue, a misplaced book or a dropped handkerchief, and it ends up being the key to solving the whole thing.
And who knows, maybe one of our listeners, you listening right now, has that missing piece of the puzzle tucked away in their memory.
Right.
Maybe you were in the Oak Cliff area around the time of the shooting and you saw something that you didn't think was important at the time.
Yeah.
A vehicle that seemed out of place, a person acting suspiciously.
Even if it seems insignificant, anything that just deviated from the ordinary could be crucial.
Right.
Remember that black Nissan Titan with the T emblem? What if someone saw that truck in the neighborhood in the days or weeks leading up to the shooting?
Right.
That could help investigators establish a timeline or a pattern of activity,
So basically what we're saying is, don't dismiss your own memories or observations.
Yeah.
Something that seems trivial to you could be like the missing link for investigators.
And even if you didn't see anything directly related to the crime,
Right.
maybe you know someone who did, someone who lives in the Oak Cliff area, someone who might have noticed something unusual.
Sharing information is just so crucial in cases like this. It's a collective effort.
Right.
We can't just rely solely on law enforcement to solve this.
Right.
We as a community, as people who care about justice, we have a role to play too.
And speaking of community, the article highlighted how, the people of Oak Cliff really rallied around Jennifer and Amber after Jamie's death.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that even in the face of this horrible tragedy, there's still kindness, there's still hope.
Absolutely.
And, that sense of community, of shared purpose, it can be a powerful force in the pursuit of justice.
Yeah, for sure.
Imagine if Everyone in Oak Cliff, everyone who knew Jamie or even just heard his story,
Right.
and they took it upon themselves to, share what they know, ask questions, keep the conversation going.
It could create like a ripple effect, a wave of awareness that could eventually lead to the break that investigators need.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into the Jamie Faith case, we'll leave you with a challenge.
Okay.
Don't let this story fade away.
Yeah.
Talk about it with your friends, your family, your neighbors. Share it on social media. Post in those online forums that we were talking about.
Mhm.
Contact the Dallas Police Department if you have any information, no matter how small you think it might be.
Could make all the difference.
It could be huge.
Yeah.
Keep the memory of Jamie Faith alive.
Yeah.
Keep asking questions.
Keep the conversation going.
Keep searching for answers, because even the most complex puzzles can be solved.
That's right.
And even in the darkest of times, the truth has a way of finding its way to the light.
I believe that.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful, and we hope it inspires you to stay engaged, stay curious, and to never give up hope in the pursuit of justice.
Me too.
Oh, too.